Welcome back, IQ Ninjas. In the last video, we talked through the American Revolution. This video takes into consideration the aftermath of the Revolution and the work of the first few presidents. As discussed in Episode 3, the British Army had completely left the colony shortly after the Treaty of Paris was signed in 1783. Now there was a union of 13 regions, and the Continental Congress that had led them through war now had to figure out how to decide how to lead them in peace. The Articles of Confederation, the nation's first constitution, had been adopted in 1777 and finally ratified in 1781. It strung together the colonies, but it had several holes. The Articles left most of the power with the state governments. It was obvious that the newly formed nation needed a new constitution. So a delegation of the Continental Congress was called. In fact, it was Alexander Hamilton who called it. George Washington was selected as president of the delegation by unanimous vote. Famed leaders like Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, John Hancock, John Jay, and Patrick Henry did not attend for several reasons. Nonetheless, on September 17, 1787, after 116 days, delegates of the Congress signed the new U.S. Constitution. It combated the problem of independent states with a stronger federal government, which was supported by a system of checks and balances. State representation was another large issue addressed, mostly because some small states had large economies and some larger states were still developing. Slavery was one of the few major issues that was not solved but rather pushed off. That's all fine and dandy, but the Constitution had to be ratified to be effective. Three men, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay, wrote the Federalist Papers, a set of 85 essays with the sole purpose of convincing the American public to ratify the Constitution. The people who supported them became known as Federalists, those against, Anti-Federalists. The Congress decided that 9 out of the 13 states had to ratify the document for it to replace the Articles. 5 states, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Connecticut, and New Jersey, immediately ratified. But most others said that unless the Constitution outlined the rights of American citizens, i.e. the Bill of Rights, they wouldn't ratify the document. It was the Massachusetts Compromise that stated that anti-federalist states like Massachusetts would ratify the document if a Bill of Rights was put into motion immediately. And it worked. The Constitution was ratified on June 21, 1788. The Bill of Rights was later ratified December 10, 1791. Under the Constitution's new form of leadership, the executive branch needed a president and a vice president. On February 4, 1789, members of the Continental Congress cast their ballots on who they wanted to become their first president. George Washington was chosen first, and John Adams, the runner-up, began his VP. Washington can very accurately be called the American Cincinnatus. Both felt that they did not really want to lead their nations, but they both did out of a sense of duty. They were both expressed a homey love for their farms and estates, but nonetheless, both were stellar leaders. It is very hard to find fault with much in George Washington's terms, and despite an expected win for a third term, Washington resigned his position and went home to Mount Vernon, his estate. It was then that John Adams took over as the second president, and Thomas Jefferson his VP. Adams had a much different approach to running a country than Washington and Jefferson. In fact, when he was George Washington's vice president, he advocated that the newly elected president be called titles such as His Highness and His Benign Highness. Many would describe Adams as a political philosopher more than a political leader. He was quite vain and hated the office of vice president, but when he was himself the Mr. President, he was focused. He struggled with diplomacy with France, though, and he did do quite well. Thomas Jefferson was our nation's third president, and he was an activist for sure. When he was in presidency, he slashed budgets and abolished a much-hated tax on whiskey, yet he managed to slice a third of the nation's debt. He fought pirates, and most well-known, he bought territory from France in a deal called the Louisiana Purchase. Next time, we'll dive deeper into that purchase and its impact on the young nation. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, as well as go to quantumblackboard.com to watch more videos and become an IQ Ninja. See you next time.